The greatness and importance of seva. To do meditation, the mind must be under one's control. When the mind remains separate and otherwise engaged, and the organs of action are engaged in some work, even then the mind will be participating in the work superficially, in an indirect and subtle way, and not overtly. But when one becomes absorbed in meditation, and sense organs as well as organs of action have become inactive, the mind gets hurt and feels tormented and remains silent and quiet under compulsion. When the meditator gradually surfaces to normal consciousness, the mind returns and resumes its normal action. But when one is engaged in seva, meaning selfless work, both the mind and its associated organs of senses and action will joyfully work in unison and harmony. On the other hand, in meditation, one has to keep his mind, along with sense organs and organs of action, under his control and check. Of course, it is always extremely difficult to keep one's mind under control because it never becomes inactive except in deep sleep. When the sense organs work in unison, the organs of action will automatically join them willingly and joyfully, and the job on hand will be accomplished perfectly. When this happens, there will be all-round harmony, and the mind will not leave the organs to themselves and try to get interested in something else. Then, with such a mind, when one is engaged in seva work, in noble and selfless work, no other disturbing desires, thoughts, and worries will arise in one's mind. Especially now, in modern days, when people have progressed too far technologically and in every other way, for anyone to get involved in seva work is very difficult and is indeed great and noble. To engage in seva work becomes extremely beneficent for the mind and lays proper foundation for the mind to become one-pointed, capable, and efficient. In this way, seva work prepares the mind to deep meditation and silence. Now, when you people get busy with some service in the ashrama, by God's grace, the mind remains calm and no unwanted desire or yearning will arise to disturb the mind. The organs of action will cooperate in the work quite willingly and enthusiastically. The mind too gets absorbed in the work. Is this, in effect, not a much superior mental state than your dhyana with closed eyes? You, who are devotees, seekers, and spiritual aspirants, should understand this secret, this inner meaning of this selfless seva, which in fact proves to be a highly effective sadhana. That is why, whenever devotees come to the ashrama, they should themselves find out some work suitable to their temperament and useful to the ashrama, and engage themselves willingly in such work. But they should not entertain any ulterior motives in their minds while doing the work. In fact, to get this kind of an opportunity to work is in itself a rare good fortune and a blessing. Such a devotee who works with great devotion and sincerity, even if he has not been able to sit and meditate on any day, will eventually derive astounding spiritual benefit. Because of his continuous selfless seva, before he leaves his body, in his last moments, he will automatically and effortlessly get into very deep absorption in meditation and experience nirvikalpa samadhi, or self-realization. All this happens because of Guru's compassion, love, grace, and blessings. This is because he will have been virtually in that state all along. Why I am emphasizing the importance of seva to this extent is because these days, when most people are getting almost addicted to satisfying their endless sensual desires, to develop the propensity or get the requisite bent of mind to get interested in this kind of seva, is becoming extraordinarily difficult. Also, engaging oneself in serious sadhana remaining at home is almost impossible these days. Saints and ascetics of yore used to devote themselves to highly rigorous tapasya or spiritual disciplines, ignoring even basic and elementary comforts and subjecting themselves and their bodies to unimaginable hardships and afflictions, not minding continuous exposure to wind, rain, and shine over prolonged periods. They had such dedication and determination, and they did it. But we cannot even imagine doing even a wee bit of such things now. In these days, if we do God's seva, His continuous remembrance through nama japa and bhajana at fixed timings, and such other simple spiritual disciplines, and attend to His duties also, it is sufficient. Organs of action become active through the promptings of sense organs alone. Only when the mind remains with the sense organs, they motivate organs of action. These three, mind and organs of sense and action, synchronize harmoniously when we do God's seva. This becomes natural and effortless meditation. It is for this purpose only we sit for meditation with closed eyes and make the mind and organs still with no movement whatsoever. When we do God's seva, we will in fact be doing good meditation even without our knowledge. When the mind gets absorbed in God's seva, is it not meditation? Only when the mind is at peace and free from all other thoughts, we can concentrate on seva, isn't it? With nagging doubts and tormenting worries, can we get interested in doing God's seva? When we begin the seva, even if some sort of disturbing thoughts are present in the mind, as we get immersed in seva work, all such thoughts disappear. Such a still mind is what we call the nirvikalpa state. Then there is what is called the nidana state of mind. This is superior to all other states. One who is in this state need not do any work or duties or sadhana or anything else. What is this nidana state? To be totally free of the doer feeling is nidana state. Doing everything, you remain under the feeling that you are doing nothing. Even when you are giving away things to anyone, you don't feel you have given anything. In common usage, we use the word nidana to mean to be soft and slow in everything we do, to walk very slowly, to speak very slowly and very softly, to eat very slowly without talking or making any kind of noise, etc. This is not what we mean by nidana. To be utterly and totally free of the doer feeling is nidana. As for example, you go on giving profusely, and yet you feel you have given absolutely nothing. Now say there is someone who cannot himself do any kind of physical seva, but by God's grace he has money. If he freely parts with his money, all the while firmly feeling, all I possess really belongs to him, I am giving to him only what is his, then he is a real nidani, one who is in a nidana state. Let the whole world proclaim that he is a munificent donor, a Danashura Karna, who is Karna of Mahabharata, who was famed in giving. He should always feel within himself, I have given nothing, I have done nothing. One should be a nidani like that. Sometimes, even to know or understand these subtle things creates real difficulties. The mind is so subtle. I say this because there are some who are by nature nidanis without their knowing. They will be freely giving money and or doing other kinds of seva. After hearing what I have explained above, they get into a lot of confusion, like, am I a real nidani? Am I really giving and doing things the way I should? Etc. etc. That is why Guru selects proper devotees, prompts them to give and do other kinds of seva, and then makes them forget all about it. He has the power to make them do the right things, even without their being aware of it. God goes on getting such things done by his selected devotees. If they come to know of things like being a nidani, etc., sometimes strange things happen. The mind is well known for being fickle, like a monkey. Now it goes on scratching its head over such things and makes a raw wound of it. By going on thinking over it, it keeps the wound always raw and festering and will not allow it to heal. So it is best to go on giving money and doing seva quietly without bothering about these things. One should not be thinking deeply and discussing unnecessarily such things. If one does this, unnecessary complications will arise where things were going on smoothly. I know what is going on in everyone's mind. So, knowing that Guru knows everything, if the devotee goes on doing his work as well as sadhana in his own way, that is sufficient. To whatever you get excessively attached, that is family. People generally complain that they find no time to do japa, dhyana, etc. because they are family people. Family is the standard excuse for almost all people for not doing any serious spiritual sadhana. Appa clarifies what family bondage really means. Family does not mean only people living in the house, like wife, children, etc. Mentally, we develop strong attachments to various things. Some of us, for example, get excessively attached to the house that we live in. We become so fond of that building made of stone, brick, and cement, take great care of it, and are so much concerned with its upkeep and maintenance. After all, it is just a building that is inert. All the same to such a person, house becomes his family. Take an ashrama. That is again only a building. But if one is strongly attached to it, it becomes his family. If he begins to feel that if he leaves it and goes, then that happens, this happens, how can he go, etc., then it becomes his family. So family does not mean only husband, wife, children, father, mother, etc. Anything, an animal, a bird, something, some jewel, money, anything for that matter, if we develop excessive fondness and attachment, that becomes one's family. It is clear, therefore, that it is not the wife that makes a family. There are some who get up startled a number of times in the night and check up the lockers in their almirahs. They love such lifeless things much more than their living wives. Oh my Lord, what attachment they have for such things! Beating the old granny who obstructed doing bhajana and yet escaping from father's thrashing. Once Kannesha, who is Appa's son, had chicken pox. He was coughing severely. At that period, my father's elder sister, Appaji, was living with us in the house. She was more violent than Appaji, who was Appa's father. She was disliking me immensely. She was in fact detesting the very sight of me. People said that Kannesha should not be taken to the hospital and shown to the doctor there. Something flashed to me. Why not do bhajan in our house today? If I tell people in the house that we will do bhajan for the sake of Kannesha, so that he will get cured of his chicken pox quickly, they will certainly not come in our way. Appaji was also not in the house that day. I thought of this plan because they were never allowing us to do bhajan in our house. I collected 4 to 5 boys, telling them that we will do bhajan in our house at 4 in the afternoon. They were all surprised because they knew that people in our house will never allow us to do bhajan in the house. I had got a few pairs of small-sized iron cymbals made from the village blacksmith. I kept these cymbals and dakki, meaning small-sized kettle drum, ready for bhajan. I had brought some puffed rice for distribution as prasad after the bhajan. Asking the boys to sit, I went out to bring some more boys. Mother would not be coming in the way of our doing bhajan. But Papaji would never allow such things to be performed in the house. She threatened the boys and shouted at them, "Eh, the boy is not well in the house and we are worrying ourselves to death about it. And you have come to do bhajan in the house? Are you not ashamed of yourselves? Our hardship gives you joy to do bhajan in the house, is it? We have our suffering as our lot, and you want to enjoy and make yourselves merry, is it? If any of you just open your lips or even make the least little bit of noise or any such thing, you will see what I will do to you and what will be your fate." What could the poor boys do? They were just keeping quiet and waiting for me to return. I came back with some more boys and only saw grim silence reigning in the house and no bhajan. I wondered why the fellows were sitting quiet when I had already told them to be doing bhajan. I asked them to take the cymbals and begin the bhajan. They said, "Eh, Papaji has scolded and threatened us. We will not do any bhajan. We will go back home." I told them not to bother about Papaji, as she did not know that the bhajan was only for the sake of the sick boy. Iranna began the bhajan with Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnuhu. Papaji got up, took a broomstick in her hand, and appeared before us. She shouted, "Eh, whoever told you not to do bhajan is not a human being, is it? Yet you have the audacity to begin Guru Brahma. If you open your mouths again, I will thrash every one of you with this broomstick." I told her, "Ajji, to do bhajan is not something that is bad, and that too, we are doing it for the sake of Ganesha's recovery only. Please don't come in our way. This will not cause any disturbance to Ganesha and will also not harm him in any way. To do bhajan is like doing meditation. You please keep quiet." I repeated this appeal to her 4 to 5 times. Still she said, "Let anybody open his mouth if he dares. I will take care of him." With folded hands, I told her again, "Ajji, I am telling you with folded hands, if you still persist in stopping our bhajan, I warn you of the consequences. I don't know what I will do to you. Be careful." She began shouting, "What will you do? You are all idiots, bastards, rascals, sons of bitches, etc." I told the boys, "Let us go ahead with our bhajan." We began singing. Immediately she threw the broomstick at us. Again I told her to be quiet. She continued her tirade. I became terrifically angry. Father was also not in the house. I collected all the 5 pairs of iron cymbals in my hand and threw them all at her face with all my force. They struck her head and face and caused deep cuts all over. Blood began flowing out profusely, just as it had happened to Jesus Christ when nails were driven into his body for his crucifixion. People tried to stop the blood from flowing out, but did not succeed. She fell down and swooned. I shouted at the boys, "Come on, go ahead with the bhajan. If you don't and try to sneak out, the same fate awaits you." We began the bhajan. Mother and other ladies began wailing loudly. I said, "What you are doing is unwanted noise. What we are doing is loud meditation." Saying that, we began doing bhajan at the top of our voices. Meanwhile, people carried Papaji to Challakere hospital in a cart. We continued our bhajan and ended it as usual. I distributed puffed rice prasad to the boys and they went home. Strangely, Ganesha became all right that very day. In the hospital, the doctor covered Papaji with bandages all over her head and face and sent her back. Before leaving the house for the hospital, Papaji had warned me that she would come back with the police who would take care of me. However, she came alone, but I became really scared after her return from the hospital. If she tells Appaji what happened to her when he returns home, who will stop this policeman from wreaking all his vengeance upon me? I resigned myself to my fate, thinking, I have been receiving all these days only beatings and thrashings from Appaya. This will be one more addition, and in all probability more severe. All right, let him beat me to death if he wants. What can I do? With this resolve, I was waiting for Appaya's return. Papaji was lying on a bed. She was continuously cursing me and threatening me. Let my brother come. I will make him break all your limbs and cut off your head. Appaya finally returned home around 5:30 in the evening. Appaya went near her and asked, "Why all these bandages all over?" We were all waiting to hear what she would say. I had already prepared myself for the worst. There was nothing else I could do. With Appaya, there was absolutely no scope or chance for me to talk or plead or explain anything. In fact, there was no possibility of opening my mouth at all. It was all a one-sided affair. He would not listen to anybody. He would just listen to what his sister says and beat me to death. That's all. It was a foregone conclusion. To the utter surprise of everybody, Papaji said, "In the night I had gone out for excretion. I slipped in the dark and fell into a thorny bush. Thorns had gone in all over." Hearing this, I did 108 pranams to her within myself. She was violently angry with me all the while. In fact, she was fuming all over with anger. Though she had threatened me she would come back from the hospital with police, she had returned alone, and now she had not disclosed the truth to Appaya also. How can I ever repay my debt to her, I felt. She was extremely hostile to me all through her stay in our house. She detested and hated me all through. She was full of anger and enmity against me. What noble quality hidden inside such a bad soul! Appaya asked her to apply some ointment to her wounds and went inside. When I came near her, she said, "You are saved. Your father would have killed you today." I knew this. That's why I told him I fell into a thorny bush. I folded my hands in salutation to her and left. But really, who came to my rescue and saved me? Who else except the Sadguru? Miracle. God creates certain extraordinary things to happen, makes certain wonderful and supernatural incidents to take place. Though they may appear as supernatural and miraculous to the devotees, they are nothing to him, just trifles, like water bubbles on the surface of the vast ocean. Through such miracles, Guru makes the devotees understand and become aware of his existence and draws them to himself. Avadoothas. An Avadhoota, though he lives and moves about in the world, forgetting it, he remains always merged with that supreme truth, with that Parabrahma Tattva. Though he appears an ordinary person to onlookers, in reality he is an extraordinary person. Such persons are God himself, moving about in human form. They will not suffer hunger and thirst like ordinary people. But when they become hungry, they just eat whatever food is available in front of them without even asking anybody or observing any sort of formality. Even if that food is meant for a dog, they just do not bother. For all external appearance, they look like madmen. If one recognizes and serves them, his worldly and family problems and difficulties may get solved, but not his spiritual problems and difficulties. This is because they will not have a master-disciple relationship, a guru-shishya relationship. When one becomes an Avadhoota, he cannot become either a guru or an ordinary person again. Avadhootas wish well of the world always. The I feeling must end. Without ending one's I feeling, if he simply goes on visiting the Guru, it will not serve any purpose. Keeping his I feeling intact, even if one continues his visit to the Guru for 15 years, he will simply be going and coming back. That's all. He will neither know him nor understand him. The moment one loses his ego or the I feeling, that very moment he endears himself to God. That person need not now run after the Guru. Remaining where he is, if he just remains firmly devoted to God, God will be there itself, very near to him. He will not go anywhere else. One should remain firm in the conviction that God is always with him, that whatever he gets is only from him, and become fearless and carefree without entertaining any sort of worry. No more suffering will be there for him. All his pains leave him, and he remains always happy and relaxed. This happens because from the moment the devotee drops his ego, God would be looking after him, taking all his responsibilities upon himself.